Welcome to another episode of The Loading Zone. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. My name is Rebound Nameng, your financial advisor. As per usual, these videos do not constitute financial advice and should not be seen or treated as such. For adequate and comprehensive financial advice, please seek the counsel of a registered advisor or hit me up in my professional capacity. Today I want to talk about my first credit card and the lessons that I learned from it. So many moons ago, I think it was around 2008, 2009 when I was still a student, I got my first credit card. So I actually got it on campus. At the time, I think it was during registration period or I was changing my modules, something to that effect. So upon completing the administration of my courses, there were consultants from one of the big banks in the country who had a little setup there by the side at the registration hall. They were basically there to recruit students to sign them up for a student credit card. At first I wasn't interested because I wasn't banking with that bank. But there was this really good looking lady who approached me, so naturally I gave her a chance to talk. She spoke of a 500 Rand limit that I would get on my credit card, and all I needed to do was pay 25 Rand on a monthly basis. As a broke student, I looked at it like it was a free 500 Rand. So of course I was interested, but in all honesty, I wasn't paying attention. I was just thinking about the dope things I was gonna do with this 500 Rand once it comes in. So I signed up, and within a few days I received my credit card delivered at the school. Needless to say, I spent it all within hours. Don't ask me what I did with it, just know that within hours it was all gone. Welcome to the world of debt about it. At first I was paying my 25 Rand religiously, and at some point I defaulted, and that's when the phone calls started coming in. In hindsight, it was a good thing, but it's actually a bad thing. Let me explain why. So one of the consultants from the collection department gave me a call at some stage, and we started talking, and he basically explained to me how I should actually be using my credit card. This time I was listening. He told me that if I pay in full what I used within 55 days on my credit card, I would actually not be charged any interest. This was mind-blowing for me. Essentially, one is given a grace period on any amount that they've actually used on their credit card. And on my particular credit card, it was 55 days. So if I paid back everything I had used before the 55 days, I wouldn't actually be charged any interest. So it would be like I borrowed from a friend or a family member and I just paid them back what I actually owed. See, most people don't know this. So they only pay what the debit order is or what the bare minimum is for the month. Which means in month 2, then they start paying interest on this. So what I started doing at the time was pay back the full balance and only take what I needed during the course of the month. I did this for a while until such a point where I barely needed to use it during the course of the month. Little did I know at the time that I was actually building a positive credit score. So my limit was only 500 Rand. So I wasn't really saving much when it comes to interest, but with the higher balance or limit rather, I would be saving a lot more. The same principles would actually apply. The higher the limit, the higher the interest, and therefore the sooner you pay, the less interest you actually pay. Or no interest at all if you're paying it within 55 days. It's easier to manage a small limit like 500 Rand because you can pay it off if you have maxed out your limit. However, the higher the limit you have, the more difficult it becomes to actually say you're gonna pay what you've borrowed before the 55 days. This I later learned when I started working and upgraded my credit card to a much higher limit. So because I was using my credit card well and paying it before the 55 days lapsed, I was building a positive credit score which later served me in life. For instance, when I upgraded my student check account into a normal check account when I started working, the line of credit that I had available was much more than what any of my peers who hadn't built a credit score had available to them at the time. It was much easier for me than most people to actually get a house, to get a car, or any other line of credit that I needed at the time. Now, it's important to note that a credit card is a revolving form of debt. Because we have immediate access to the funds in our credit cards, we tend to think that we are using our actual money, when in actual fact, we are actually borrowing money here. So a credit card requires a lot of self-control and discipline. Here are a few things that you should know about credit cards. The 55-day rule is almost like a rule of thumb, and it applies to most credit cards. But for some credit cards, you'd have a longer extended period, maybe 60 days, and some go up even to 70 days. Unlike interest on the student credit card that I had, which was like a one-size-fits-all interest rate, interest rates on your credit card is actually linked to your credit score for most banks. This is tied to the repo rate, which means when the repo rate increases, your interest also increases, and when the repo rate decreases, your interest also decreases. Interest may not be the only fee that you pay on your credit card. Some banks would have an initiation fee for new customers. Others would have a monthly service fee or an annual maintenance fee. It just depends on the bank. Most banks these days would have a reward program, and some banks would even go as far as doubling your points if you're actually using your credit card. Some of these reward programs would have a subscription fee linked to your credit card, which means the overall amount that you would pay on a monthly basis would be a lot more. The best credit cards, the ones with a longer grace period, the ones that give you high rewards, or the ones that have a low interest rate, are usually linked to people who have a higher income or who have built a much bigger or better credit score for a longer period of time. That's why I would advise that you always go out there and compare with different institutions. Getting close to your credit limit or maxing out your credit card can sink your credit score. Only use what you need, regardless of what your limit or how much access you actually have. If you need hard cash, avoid withdrawing money out of your credit card, as it triggers withdrawal fees, which may be much more than the withdrawal fees that you get on your normal bank account. Depending on the check card that you have or the institution that you work with, you may find that you are given certain withdrawals on a monthly basis for free. So the best thing is to transfer money from your credit card into your check account or your savings account and withdraw from there instead. Alternatively, just swipe using your credit card. Lastly, be careful of debt spiral. Basically, falling into a cycle of always using your credit card. Remember, this money isn't yours. You just have access to it. In summary, my first credit card came with a couple of lessons. Used the right way, a credit card can be a lifesaver, and it can be a good way to build your credit score. We've reached the end of this episode. A short one, but an important one if you're thinking on getting a credit card. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification button. Please, I hope that you found this valuable. My name is Rebounden Ameng, signing out. Let's get loaded.